So it was like coming from us at all different angles. And it just got to the point where we were just like, we got to save our kids. This is not going to stop. It's going to start going for my younger children too.
Yes.
It's starting list. And so, I mean, I was looking at houses in January and we were moved by March of last year.
And you moved to Florida.
Moved to Florida. Yes.
She got the hell up out of there and moved to Florida. I just went live. I'm going to try a new thing where I got a bunch of channels. I just went live on the Tim Pool after show. And if you don't know, Josie is a part of timcast.com representing. Great to see Timcast branching out, getting some, attention here through Charlie Kirk and other avenues. And she just told her story. So you see, that's a powerful thing there. When you go back to it, she's saying that they're using pronouns with her child in the school and didn't tell her. And they're like, well, we just didn't want to be assumption. They didn't want to make assumptions.
You were writing boys' names. So as your mother, we'll talk about this when you're older, but I don't want you to even worry about it or think about it now.
So her daughter came out to her, well, not didn't come out, but said, the kid's 10 years old and kids in schools have always said that, oh, you're gay or this or that. But now we're in a different atmosphere where you really, if you think you're gay, you're like, there's avenues to get it. Not only that, you'll get flowers, shouts, praised. You'll get celebrated. You mean almost like you're a better class in a way. You'll get more attention for it in a way. It's more accepted now. So you could, instead of like back in the day, you might get teased on it and didn't want to be it. Now you might want to be gay. And, you're protected. If a teacher's, teasing because you're gay and you are gay, that's a higher level of protection than normal kids get.
From the they then pronouns.
So this is the part about the pronouns. So this is how they do it. Very subtle. And this person might not have been, this teacher, whoever, might not have consciously been doing it. They want to be good. They want to have a good heart. And the institutional structure from the universities down to the teachers union, down to the teachers, all have this ideology. They don't support, opposing views. So this is what it looks like at the lower level.
Like you weren't writing Sally in a heart on the mirror, you were writing boys' names. So as your mother, we'll talk about this when you're older, but I don't want you to even worry about it or think about it now. She said, okay. And then I get a letter from somebody, an adult, I'll just say an adult in her life. And they were referring to her as a they, them.
She just said adult. Let me correct. I thought it was a teacher or something. She didn't distinguish if it was a teacher or not.
It took me a little while to figure out what they were saying, because it sounded like they were talking about a group of people, because they would switch from the they then pronouns to the she her pronouns and just them both. And so so
you see how it looks. Now let's transition to this story. Same interview, great interview. We could talk about this too, actually. Katie Porter was on with Bill Maher and embarrassed herself here. Let's listen to this real quick. And I am doing this live now on Middle Maga and the Timcast after show, because this is Timcast affiliated. Shout out.
30.
We should be able to have a civil debate. Nobody, including Riley Gaines, who I disagree with strongly, should
What do you disagree with, out of interest?
I think that it should be up to sporting bodies to make the decisions about who and
What
how
has she
should
said
compete.
that's actually wrong?
I think that what she has done is try to turn the
Compare Katie Porter, who's somebody I've said good things about Katie Porter in the past. But if you want to rise, she wants to be senator now. When you rise through the ranks of the Democratic Party, you have to believe these things. So let's compare to how asinine Katie Porter sounds here to Julia Malott. Malata, I forget the last name, but the trans woman I just showed you. She sounded very respectful, very authentic. What do you think Katie Porter sounds like here?
Against Bill Maher and Pierce Morgan debating. And here's Katie Porter just saying, oh, I don't like Riley Gaines. I don't know if we have Bill Maher actually in.
Inauthentic take, not well researched. I don't know if Katie Porter even knows the topic well, because she already knows what take she has to have. So why would you dig into it and compare the two? Katie Porter just embarrassed herself. Pierce Morgan, of all people, was like, what are you talking about?
This clip, but this is on Bill Maher. Play cut 30.
We should be able to have a civil debate. Nobody, including Riley Gaines, who I disagree with strongly, should feel
What do you
physically.
disagree with out of interest?
I think that it should be up to sporting bodies to make the decisions about who
But
and
what
how
has she
should
said
compete.
that's actually wrong?
I think that what she has done is try to turn this. We talked about people, using things to kind of get likes and get clicks.
See, she doesn't know what she's talking about. It's okay if you don't know what you're talking about. It's okay to just say it. I haven't followed the story, or I don't know why. Maybe she has followed the story and just wants to be careful what she says. But she doesn't. He said, what does she believe? Because what she believes is women shouldn't have to share a locker room with a guy and his eggplant hanging all over the place, and we have to look at it. Do you want that, Katie Porter?
About who
But
and
what
how
has she
should
said
compete.
that's actually wrong?
I think that what she has done is try to turn this. We talked about people, using things to kind of get likes and get clicks.
That's not what she's doing.
It's not?
I've got no truck for Riley Gaines personally, but
She could be doing that for likes and clicks, but that doesn't answer the question. What did she say that you disagree with?
all I've seen her do is stand up for women's rights to fairness and equality.
Pretty sane. What is Katie Porter agreeing with here? Thoughts?
Katie Porter just knows the talking points, but it sounds like she wasn't even up to date on them because she was really her words, trying to figure out a way to respond to Piers Morgan. I was actually lucky enough to interview Riley Gaines myself in one of my Twitter spaces. I do those regularly. And it was just incredible listening to her talk about just being a woman and the things that she had to go through. And one of the things I brought up earlier was that they would have to get changed in the same locker room with
it's not an exaggeration, it's what happened.
And I mean, I was on the swim team, and there's not a lot of privacy when you're changing with a group of girls, you know, but this is a guy who is a fully equipped guy who is changing with them, and they didn't consent to that, and it felt like a violation because he would be looking at them. And I don't blame her. If it were happening to my child, even if she were an adult, I'd feel violated for them, and I'd want to fight it too. But there's no pathway with that now.
And you look at forget about even the content. It's like, who's being authentic in their approach? Katie Porter, GB said, looks like she ate all the. Okay, guys, let's be serious here. GB says it looks like Katie Porter ate all the donuts in the green room. So what I want to do is talk about which take is more authentic, and y'all are talking about why are the donuts gone in the green room for Bill Maher. I'm trying to have a serious conversation, and y'all are wondering why Bill Maher didn't order more donuts knowing that Katie Porter was going to come through. Well, at least we could get some laughs, because this other topic here, it got pretty dark, and I'm going to cover this a little bit more detail, and then I'll end the Timcast after show live. I got to find the clip here where we talked about the law. It is in Washington, I believe. Let me find it real quick. Where they're basically saying they're going to take away your kids. Let's dig deeper into this.
The rise of the pedophiles already, and we're seeing them get stronger, and we see them gaining steam, not losing steam. There's an accelerant behind it. I want to play some pieces of tape here, which I think is really important. I want to reemphasize that I said at the break, okay, I'm a conservative libertarian. We agree on a lot, but this is honestly beyond anything. This is civilizational. I don't understand anybody who could support this. I've met them. They're groomers. They're creeps. Some of them are perverts. Let's play cut 29. And this is not just, this is what I get sometimes from people. People will say, well, Charlie, this is just that. Why does this impact me? This is an ideological debate. What do you have against trans people? Well, let's look at this right here. This is now legislation. And Josie, you know this. In Washington, they are able to now kidnap your child. Not an exaggeration. It's not a hyperbole. I'm not doing this to get clicks. They're now, and it's happening in California too, maybe, to kidnap your child. Play cut 29.
The microaggressions, the language of parents. I really wish more parents had the skills that the parents who are in this room talking about how they would want to affirm their children but say no. I wish more parents had that. But when I see a young person come to me on a regular basis saying, I can't go home, home is not safe, am I not going to do something? Are we not going to do something? Am I going to let them stay out on the street, homeless, at risk, all because they can't go home to a place where we don't know what those threats are going to actually be?
And that's a lot of buzzwords, but if you listen very carefully with what she's effectively saying that parents who do not affirm the mental delusion of a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old. For example, 12-year-old comes home after seeing a TikTok video, being around parents, and they're very impressionable, as per your point. Their brains are still developing. They're open to other people's social cues. They are trying to conform to try to limit bullying amongst themselves. At age of 12, they might say, Mom, I'm a boy. And if the parent says, no, you're not, like you did, like you said, no, actually, you're not, you could be subject to the government coming, and this is now Assembly Bill 665, the government can come take the child away, Child Protective Services. Kidnapping bill. Children as young as 12 would be given the power to place themselves in residential shelters with the help of a counselor. Your thoughts?
That makes my skin crawl. And that is something that had crossed my mind that could happen if I didn't save my children from Massachusetts. That's something that had crossed my mind, which it's unthinkable. It's unthinkable to me, just as a mother, seeing what was happening, seeing what was coming for my children. A lot of what they're doing is this obfuscation of consent and what children can consent to with their bodies. The things they can consent to with their bodies are, a lot of it is the refusal of the things that they already can't consent to. Like a child has the power to say, no, I don't want to have sex. No, I don't want to do drugs. No, I don't want to take alcohol. And that's where their power is. But they're trying to say that they can also say, yes, I want to do those things, and they can't.
Yeah, and it really asks the question of who do kids belong to, right? Now, some extreme libertarians, which you are not, will say, oh, when they're 14 or 15 or 16. It's just, that's nonsense, right? Do you have
Okay, let me stop there and go to the actual legislation. The actual bill here in Washington. I'm on the actual page of the bill here. Let me bring that up. So I have the actual piece of legislation that passed. It might be hard to see, but I just want to make sure it's here because this stuff is so crazy that it's easy to say, oh, Charlie Kirk is lying. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. I did not read this whole piece of legislation. I went through it to find the pertinent parts. And there's one pertinent part. I have to do a separate video on this. There's one pertinent part that I want to share that sums it up here. And let me find it real quick. It's under protective services, I believe. So here it is. Circumstances. So the definition of these bills is very important. This is the bill here, SB 5599 in Washington. I want to actually go. This is so important. Let me not. I don't want to play around with this. So if I'm wrong, I'm fine to be wrong. I just want to show what I've done to look at it independently myself to say, like, this is crazy. There's no way the state of Washington is doing a bill where they can take your kid away. Yes, they are. And here's how they're doing it. SB 5599, supporting youth and young adults seeking protected health care services. So for Josie and her situation, for her daughter could have been very close to seeking protected health care services. And if the way I interpret this bill is if the parent disagrees with that, then that is a troubled youth. You'll see that's not the exact definition, but you'll see the definition here in a second. So I'm going to the section here where you define it. And here's where they have the definitions in this section here. So it says, okay, here's the definition of some of these terms, like what is promptly report. So let me go through some of these definitions and get to circumstances where the spidey sense starts tingling. So the circumstance, compelling reasons include but are not limited to. So what are compelling reasons? Compelling reasons to affirm the child gets the protected health services of the state. Shelter, means the person's home or any structure over which the person has any control. Promptly report means to report within 8 hours after the person has knowledge that the minor is away from a lawfully prescribed residence or home without parental permission. The way they're doing the bill is to say it's homeless. So they're basically saying if the child wants protected services and they're homeless, and they don't feel safe in the home, they're homeless, so they're ours now. And you take them to the indoctrination camps. A child maybe says, hey, I want to change genders. I told my parents, and then my parents told me, hey, when I was younger, I would write girls' names with hearts or boys' names with hearts. So my parents told me that I'm not this identity, but I feel like I am. So the person at school, teacher, whatever person could say that you're not protected at home anymore. So here's the part that really caught my attention is circumstances that indicate that notifying the parent or legal guardian will subject the minor to abuse or neglect as defined in the other section, or when a minor is seeking or receiving protected health care services. Either I have control over my child or not. So this is where I part ways. If I have my child and my child is under 18, I get to decide whether they receive any type of health care. There is nobody, I don't care what the health care is. So I've had disagreements. Let me step away from this document real quick. I've had disagreements. I disagree with Josie. Josie, I think, believes if a parent and a child, and many people in the chat, if a parent, a child, and a doctor agree on gender-affirming care, Josie, Matt Walsh, I'm not against y'all, and in the chat, a lot of people say a child can't consent. I disagree completely. That's why I disagree, because it goes both ways. You went down the wrong path. You guys did a choose your own adventure, and Eric July, one of the very rare things I disagree with Eric July on. Let me restate it again. Maybe I'm missing people in the chat. Well, many people in the chat, Eric July, Matt Walsh, Josie, the red-headed libertarian, they all believe that if a parent and a child and a doctor agree on gender-affirming care, they shouldn't be allowed to do it. That's their position. And I said, that's a slippery slope. Why are you taking that route? My route is if a parent, a child, and you say a child can't consent, to hell a child can't consent. A child can consent if I say they consent. A child cannot consent, and we're talking about medicine only. Don't take it to alcohol. Don't take it to booze. Don't take it to sex. That's not the position. Unless you're trying to argue sex is for a medical remedy, who's arguing that? And then you can go down that slippery slope, but that's not what I'm arguing. In the realm of medicine, whether it's aborting a fetus, whether it's the drug that begins with the letter I, or if it's gender-affirming care, if a parent, a child, and a doctor agree on a procedure, it ain't got nothing to do with me. It's their decision. So that I disagree there. And then what happens is you go down the slippery slope. So they say, bet. We can step in. If you don't think that, we can step in. If a child does, if you don't think your child should have these services and the child thinks they should, then the child is a minor seeking or receiving protected. All they have to do is say it. All they have to do is say, I want this gender affirming care. And the parent can say no, and then now that minor is in danger. So what is the protected health care services? Means gender affirming treatment as defined in this other and reproductive health care. When the department receives a report under this section, it shall make a good faith attempt to notify the parent that a report has been received and offer services designed to resolve the conflict and accomplish a reunification of the family. What does that mean? That means they go ahead with this affirming care. That's the unification that they talk about. When the department receives a report under the subsection of this minor who is seeking and receiving protected health, see, they call it protected health services. What does that mean? Gender affirming care. What does that mean? As much as taking powerful big pharma drugs, it means potentially grafting skin off of your forearm. It means potentially grafting skin off of your leg. That's what it really means. So protective healthcare services, when you go down the rabbit hole, it ends up being sponsored by.
The 65th Grammy Awards is sponsored by Pfizer.
And there you have it. In the state of Washington, you don't believe me, you need to get out and get the hell out. And I'm in a blue state. Governor Polis would agree with all of that. So when I say get the hell out, that includes me in the mirror in my family. I'm at least not in the inner city. There's no way I'm living in an inner city hellhole. It doesn't matter. I'll find something. I'll figure something out. I'm not living in the inner city. But, and I have. In Cleveland, Ohio, I lived in, well, it wasn't the inner city, but it wasn't inner city, but it was in the city. I used to live in Euclid, Ohio, and it was, it wasn't East Cleveland, but it was a city. I stayed to myself. That's one big thing. I'm like, I stayed to myself, stayed quiet, humble. I got my first MacBook stolen from my apartment. They ran up in my crib and stole, when I was gone, they ran up in my crib and stole my MacBook. I had a gamer mouse, beautiful black, dope. What's the name of the company with the snake on it? Was it Logitech? I forget which one. It was a great, that company that's all green, black and green. I forgot. I'm not even into gaming anymore, but the gaming mouse had that. And the funny thing is, I had the tracking system on the MacBook, and I saw when, I don't know how, they turned it on or whatever, I saw the exact address. I actually I think I called the police, and I told the police, the GPS on the laptop is on. And I gave them the GPS, and I never heard back from the police. And what am I going to do? Run up in the spot like Rambo? I'm a lover, not a fighter. What am I going to get got over, like, life over a MacBook and a PlayStation? But I had the beeper turned on, the Find My iPhone on the MacBook turned on, and I think I was chatting with a police officer. I was like, I know where they are. And that nigga was like, this dude is so stupid. You think you think we are gonna, this is back when the police were a little bit more involved. Now I know they probably would have laughed out loud at me. Like, what do you want us to do? What do you think we're gonna do? You think we're gonna do a raid over your MacBook, bro? You took that L. Do you have renter's insurance? That L is gone, bro. That's what the police would tell you now, and I appreciate that. Tell you to tell the truth. Going to the chat, Kenneth Hotep says, I think the child has to be emancipation age, though. Okay, yeah. So some people, I think whatever the medical treatment is, I don't care how old my child is. If I agree with it and the doctor agrees with it, then we do it. But I'm not against people who say, I think it's a fair take. Please don't get me wrong. For Matt Walsh, all he says is wait till they're 18. Is that the radical take? No, I think that's a fair take. Let me switch topics again. Let's go back to Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh has a lot of fair takes that people get in their feelings about, and I think it's brilliant what he does. Matt Walsh had a take, and we're going back to the inner city stuff, and it's just a base take. I don't know what else you want to hear. There's nothing else that needs to be said. I'll just read the tweet and let it breathe on its own. Matt Walsh says that, even if just half the men in the inner city would simply stick around and raise their own children, violence and crime would plummet nationwide. It's actually that easy. Raise your damned kids. Take responsibility for yourself and your family. It's really as simple as that. And people get triggered by Matt Walsh, and he just says the most simple thing. And I'm like, that's what gets you triggered? It's because of what you think he represents. Even people I agree with looked at it and like, oh, Matt, probably Maj Toure would agree with this too. Oh, Matt, what do you mean by inner city youth? I don't know. Matt has courage. So I'm not, if Matt means black, I think Matt will say black. I'm going to go to his other comment where he said slavery was he didn't say this exactly, but he basically said slavery was a gift, which had my spidey sense tingling like, damn, what was that? I actually agree with him on the take. But my point is, he has the courage to say what needs to be said. And I'm off of Tim Pool. So I'm going to drop from the Tim Pool show. Thank you I'm going to just go in and out of my life. So I appreciate you joining from the Tim Pool After Show. We're dropping